All right, we're back. I'm gonna get right back into it. Let me check that sound is good.
We're back. I'm going to get right back into it.
Yes. So as I was saying, nothing against this guy, but he's not the one who's going to get deported. He's not the one who's going to get his citizenship canceled. And another great point that was made, which was I, for example, am a born U.S. citizen. I was born in this country. My parents are naturalized citizens. If a green card holder can get their green card canceled and be detained by ICE and disappeared and sent to some black site in Louisiana, there's no reason I can't too. There's no reason that you can't too. There is nobody who is safe from the state once they are able to cancel a green card and indefinitely detain a green card holder. Permanent legal status is permanent legal status. If you have a green card or if you're a U.S. citizen, you have the same right. You have the same constitutional rights. The only thing you can't do is vote, as far as I understand. I mean, there's other things too, but like, for all intensive purposes, you can do everything, right? You've got your social security number, you've got banking details, you're in the financial system, you just can't vote. Except maybe in like school board elections in certain districts, right? That's the main difference, is voting, and then you're also not liable to be conscripted, right? But I digress. If you are in this moment, you have an obligation to call this out for what it is. What it is the Nazification of our government. It is objectively the Nazification of our government, the Nazification of our state. There is no function to deporting someone for, even if all of the accusation against him are true, which almost demonstrably they are not. There is absolutely no reason for you to deport someone for a crime rather than simply put them through our criminal justice system for the crime. Except if you want to Nazify our government. If you want to expand the ability of the state to remove people here, to remove people from this country who are legally allowed to be in this country, who have permanent legal status in this country. The only function of deporting versus arresting and indicting and arraigning, the only purpose of ICE detainment without charge, that's a cute bunny, the only purpose of that is to establish the state's power to do the thing in the first place. And then the purpose of that thing is ethnic cleansing. That's what it is. They want to remove people who have been established as legally allowed to be here. And it is completely supported in the precedent set by Trump trying to end birthright citizenship. The whole fucking point of ending birthright citizenship while canceling green cards is to say, one, the fact that you were born here with legal status does not actually mean you have legal status here. The fact that you're a born citizen does not mean that you actually have legal status here. And we can take away your legal status if we perceive you to have committed a crime. And we don't have to put you through the justice system in order to do it. That's fascism. It is the Nazification of our country. It is the establishment of a Fourth Reich. And if you consider that to be hyperbolic, you're fucking stupid. I'm sorry, that's it. You're just an idiot. You are a moron with a baby brain and no understanding of history. And I will say the same thing to people who claim to care about combating anti-Semitism, but want to support our government's ability to disappear legal permanent residents and get them deported from the country. It's the fucking Niemöller poem. It's what it is. Except, what's the tweet? Oh my god, I'm gonna pull up the Schumer tweet real quick here. I don't want this. Here it is. It was yeah. The first line of the poem was, first they came for the socialists, and I said, I abhor many of the opinions and policies that Mahmoud Khalil holds and supports, and have made my criticism of the anti-Semitic actions of Colombia loudly known. Mr. Khalil is also a legal permanent resident here, and his wife, who is 8 months pregnant, is an American citizen. Then they came for the homosexuals. And I said, you know the rest. Like, this is the leader of the American opposition right now. I want to be very clear about that. This is the leader of the American opposition. I don't know what the fuck is going on. We're speedrunning the end of this country. If you don't have a morally clear condemnation for what the Trump administration is doing here, I don't understand what you're doing here. Hold on, sorry, I'm idly clicking. No spoilers. I don't know what it is you think you're doing. I don't know what it is you envision yourself as when you allow yourself to continue being the opposition leader. You're a peacetime majority leader, that's great. We're at war. We're at war. We did not choose this war. There is a fascist in the Oval Office who has signed what seems like hundreds of executive orders in the 2 months since he took office, ending birthright citizenship, changing a litany of rules that need to be changed by congressional statute, and creating a government agency, again, something that has to be done by an act of Congress, creating a government agency in which he is given not classified, but protected data and legally protected data like social security numbers, bank account info, to a billionaire with a clear substance dependency who is riddled on ketamine, has a massive God complex, and has demonstrated he doesn't understand the basics of how our government or our society or our country functions. Elon Musk is beyond, like, he is psychotic. This is a man who is detached from reality, and I don't know that is, I'm not qualified to diagnose that is like a psychological psychosis, but it might just be the fact of being a billionaire just puts you out of touch with the basic reality of what Americans deal with. But the man does not know a fucking thing about entire swaths of the country that he has been given the authority and responsibility to decide if we live or die. A man who has referred to Social Security as a Ponzi scheme, which it objectively is not, now has the authority to slash and gut the most popular and successful social program in American history. This is a man who, the most wealthy man on the planet, who has basically been given carte blanche to turn the US government into his own little piggy bank and do whatever the fuck he wants to do with it with absolutely total impunity. It's insane that I need to explain why that's a bad thing. It's insane that I need to explain why a person should not be able to do that unelected. This is the abolition of the legislative branch. And Mike Johnson, who's the Speaker of the House, has completely gotten in line with it. The Republican Party is in lockstep behind Trump. They're okay with him turning this. They're okay with the Nazification of this country. Of course they are, because they are a Nazi coalition party. They are a fascist party that doesn't care, that doesn't dislike Nazis. Some would say that a person who doesn't dislike Nazis is a Nazi. That then I'm not unsympathetic to that definition. This country is being Nazified. Elon Musk, I don't know if he's a sincere Nazi. He's definitely a white supremacist. He's definitely a white natalist. And he's definitely a little anti-Semitic. Do I think that he subscribes to the Jewish question? Probably not. Do I think you have to be a JQer to be effectively a de facto Nazi? No, you probably need to just be very ideologically white supremacist. Do I think Elon Musk is that far down the rabbit hole? Maybe, maybe not. What I do know is that he thrives off the support of Nazis. What I do know is that he did a Nazi salute at the inauguration. Was he doing a giant meme? It doesn't matter. The guy's a Nazi. That he believes it, that he doesn't believe it, the guy is a Nazi. Yeah? And you and he has unfettered access to our government bureaucracies. Through the establishment of a bureaucracy that nobody voted for. Not your representative, not your senator, and certainly not fucking you. There is one response to this level of an attempt at a hostile takeover of the government, at a hostile takeover of our institutions. And that is, fuck no. We will not give you a budget. We will not give you a government. We will shut down the entire federal government. If only so that you set the standard. You do not create even the slightest semblance of a mandate for what is happening under this administration.
Hey everybody, you probably have already heard about the conversation going on in Washington. Once again, we are faced with a potential government shutdown. Here is why I cannot and will not support this partisan funding proposal put together by Washington Republicans. This really is Washington at its worst. Instead of working together to put together a bipartisan package that would actually help the people of Georgia and people all across this country, Washington Republicans closed the door on bipartisan conversations, and they emerged with an ultimatum. Either you support this terrible bill, which will do great damage to ordinary, hardworking Georgians, or we're going to let the government shut down. Both of those options, to be sure, are terrible. But here's why I cannot.
So it looks like Warnock's going to preempt what my criticism of this argument is, which, by the way, it's not a criticism of Warnock. He's talking to Georgians, and he is leading bipartisanship first because he lives in a purple state. Whatever. The bipartisanship is, and I think this is the point that Warnock is about to make, the bipartisanship is not the main issue. I don't give a shit about bipartisanship. Elections have consequences. You give your budget, whatever, right? Republicans won this election. They won more votes than the Democrats. Democrats should act like an opposition party, hold up the vote. Republicans don't have a filibuster-proof majority. They should either use the nuclear option, abolish the filibuster, or they should respect the filibuster and not be able to pass a budget. And they have to bring Democrats to the table, right? That is how this generally works. Everyone, but yes, bipartisanship only when they have a gun to your head. That's perfect. I understand that that's how that works. But the lack of bipartisanship in a situation where you need a bipartisan bill is also an example of how elections have consequences. But right now what they're trying to do is they're trying to circumvent the consequences of the election. They're trying to circumvent the democratic principles of... Now, they have 53 votes. By my system, if you have 53 votes, you shouldn't need a bipartisan bill. But that's the rule that they protect. That's the rule that they used to obstruct Biden's agenda in 2021. That's the rule they used to defeat a minimum wage increase. That's the rule that they used to completely gut the Build Back Better agenda. That is the rule that they have consistently used to screw the American people when the Democrats had a majority and did not have the spine to actually, like, do something about it. That is exactly... Sorry, I lost my train of thought. But now that they're in power, what they want is to be able to pass a bill with no Democratic involvement, despite the fact that they don't have the votes, and they expect Democrats to just join along, right? And it looks like Democrats might, because Democrats are fucking spineless. So then their gambit may have paid off. But it's a microcosm for what Trump is trying to do with the federal government, which is he is trying to create or really destroy aspects of the administrative state of the government that he does not have the authority to do. It is the Republican dogma. Dogma is the wrong word. It is the Republican MO of circumventing democracy at every possible turn. If they have to settle for even 98% of what they want by reaching across the aisle, right? And Trump can pass bills for all of these things. He's passing executive orders instead of passing bills, not because he's afraid that he won't be able to. Maybe it is a little because he's afraid he won't be able to pass them. But it is specifically to expand the power of the executive branch. This is part of Project 2025, which is it is not expanding the power of the executive branch in order to, say, ban abortion. Expanding the power of the executive branch is one of the ideological goals. It is one of the end goals. So even if he has, let's say that he has banning trans soldiers or banning gender-affirming care for underage trans people. Let's say that he has 60 votes in the Senate. He has 7 Democratic senators, which I think very possibly he could, because a lot of Democrats genuinely think that transphobia is what's going to save us in this moment. Which, read a fucking history book, you stupid motherfuckers. Let's say he has the votes, 60 votes, to pass a youth gender-affirming care ban. He will still sign the executive order because it's not about getting the bill passed. That is secondary to expanding the power of the executive branch to do it. Be right back. I'm going to blow out that balsam and cedar candle because it is, the smell is getting a lot. All right, we're back. Turning the president into a monarch is part of the goal. That's why you can't give in to the ultimatum. Why you can't give in to the ultimatum is specifically because this entire budget, if it does not have a provision that basically says Elon Musk has to be kicked the fuck out of the White House, that he does not have the authority to do anything. He does not have the authority to be in USAID. He does not have the authority to hire a bunch of 20-year-olds, one of whose name is Big Balls and the other of whom is a fucking Nazi, to go and have your social security number on his hard drive. If a continuing resolution does not have that measure passed, that severely limits Trump's power to start delegating things that should be delegated to Congress, and basically just give those to random billionaire sugar daddies who give him $100 million and have him do fucking Tesla ad reads in the Rose Garden. Or the whatever lawn. A CR without that measure, saying get Elon the fuck out of the White House, should not pass this Congress. It is Congress's job to protect its authority. Congress is the checks and balances on the president. It has to protect its authority. Any Democrat who is operating remotely with the interests of their own party at heart. By the way, this is also the level of checks and balances that stops the same Democrats from being fucking locked up. Chuck Schumer has an obligation to himself in order to not become a political prisoner to say, I am not going to comply with Trump's attempt to turn the government into his own singular unitary executive state. That's why you don't grant the budget. You don't grant the budget because you acknowledge that what is happening in our government is a massive fascist takeover. You do not comply with the Nazification of our government. And you do not give the precedent. You do not give the mandate for Republicans to say, hey, we got our budget. It was an endorsement of what Elon is doing, so we're going to keep doing what we were doing. Which is exactly what the fuck he's going to do.
Give in to the ultimatum. Why I will not vote for the damage. It is going to increase the price of their education.
Yeah. So this is all true, by the way. This is all 100% true, because literally, I mean, it what executive bureaucracies do is they enforce the law, and mostly what they do, the ones that Elon Musk wants to cut, they're usually consumer protection, right? They are the Environmental Protection Agency. They are the anything having to do with the environment, the EPA, anything having to do with the CFPB is a great example. The Federal Trade Commission, which is part of the DOJ, but it is also, I don't know if it's a technical bureaucracy or if it's a, but I don't know exactly. Yeah, right? I feel like that would qualify. It's a cabinet bureaucracy. Almost by definition. Yeah, no, the FTC is a bureaucracy. I'm thinking myself into the pit here. I never want to say anything wrong, which is probably good instinct. The National Labor Relations Board, right? The CFPB prevents price gouging. The FTC prevents monopolistic behavior, which is also like price gouging is one of those things. The EPA doesn't necessarily prevent financial costs, but what it does do is stop you from getting diarrhea because a company producing some kind of byproduct wanted to maximize its profits by minimizing its costs and said, you know what, waste disposal is a little too expensive. Let's just dump this shit in the river. And then what happens is you drink it and you get diarrhea. That's the EPA's purview, which again is moral hazard, which is also a function of, it falls in the antitrust basic market failures, right? Moral hazards, negative externalities, price controls, monopolies. All of these things happen when a corporation has the power to do things without any checks on it, whether those checks are competition, regulation, or just the fact that, moral hazard is specifically when a corporation is able to act in a way that they are able to maximize their profit, but the cost of that is not borne by them, it's borne by everyone. For example, dumping toxic sludge into the river in order to save money on effective disposal. You gain a lot from it, and then everybody else gets sick. These are the bureaucracies they want to get rid of. And that's what Warnock is getting at, is that if we allow this president to do these things unchecked, if we allow Elon Musk to do these things unchecked, then your prices are going to go up, your kids are going to get food poisoning. The fucking FDA, right? They want to completely gut the FDA. They want your kids to get food poisoning. They want your grandmother to get botulism. They want to kill your nonna. It's like Andrew Cuomo. They want to kill your nonna. So that's true. And now he's going to get to the main point.
At the benefits they deserve. And here's more. It gives this president, who is clearly engaged in an unprecedented
Right there.
power grab, even more power to exact more damage on the people of Georgia as he chooses winners and losers, what he wants to fund and what he does not. And so I cannot in good conscience support this partisan funding bill. I will indeed vote no. Know that as we go through these difficult times, I'm doing my best, working for the people of Georgia. God bless each and every one of you and your families. Keep the faith and keep looking up.
Cool. I would have preferred he call the Republicans some ableist slurs, but this is a good statement. And it's a good vote. And understand, he lives in a swing state. If there's anybody who has a reason for saying, oh, you know what, I'm going to work with the Republicans on this, it's fucking Raphael Warnock, who lives in a state that voted for Trump in the last election. But he said no. This is it. This is the ball game. Anyway, here's Chuck Schumer, leader of the Democratic opposition, and a senator from one of the most blue states in the country, who would never lose a general election in his life in New York.
This week, Democrats offered a sensible way out. Fund the government for another month to give appropriators more time to do their jobs. Republicans rejected this proposal outright.
He looks like your disappointed uncle. I'm sorry. If he was saying all the right things, he should still quit. He should still fucking step down. He does not have the timbre, he does not have the voice, he does not have the aura, he does not have the charisma, and he does not have the capability to speak with the level of urgency that it is crucial to instill in the vast majority of Americans who are politically disengaged. Our country is being Nazified. And not only does he make himself the bastion of combating anti-Semitism by putting out statements condemning protesters and constantly leading first with the importance of combating anti-Semitism. His Judaism has nothing to do with it, by the way. It is a great cudgel if he wants to use it. But he makes himself, partly because, he is the senator from New York, and every senator from New York, like, you are presiding, you are representing what I want to say is like one of the big, if not the second biggest Jewish constituency in the world behind Israel. And so, like, of course, like, people are going to talk about how important it is to combat anti-Semitism, whether they give a shit about it or not. And frankly, based on the way that he steps up to the Nazification of our country, to the Nazi administration, to this Nazi party government, Nazi coalition party, I apologize. It doesn't seem to me like he's actually interested. Like, he's interested in the aesthetic of combating anti-Semitism. He's not actually interested in combating the conditions that lead to an anti-Semitic state, which is exactly what this Republican Party has no problem feeding into. If only because different ethno-supremacist projects perfectly benefit each other because they just deport all of their unwanteds to each other. Why do you think Hindu nationalists love fucking the American right and vice versa so much? Even while they want to deport the Indians and the H-1Bs.
Why did they reject it? Because Donald Trump doesn't want the appropriators to do their job. He wants full control over government spending.
How am I supposed to watch this man knowing nothing about politics, and how does he expect me to come away with a fraction of the importance of this moment by listening to this voice? He is not capable. He is not capable of the urgency. And frankly, I don't think he feels it. I don't think he cares. I don't think he considers this to be an urgent moment. I don't think he considers this to be the moment that it is, which is the hostile fascist takeover of our government. I think he sees it as an opportunity to allow the administrative state to be gutted so that the standards for his re-election go way down. That's where he is. The more right-wing our country shifts, the less work he has to do to get people to vote for him. That's where he is. That's where Kirsten Gillibrand is too, by the way. And I say this not to compliment Kirsten Gillibrand, because God knows I fucking hate her. God knows I hate this person who made herself the spiritual the spiritual leader of the Me Too movement among elected officials, and then decided I'm not going to comment on a credibly accused, confirmed by the New York Attorney General's office to have sexually harassed over 12 women. When he tries to get back into politics and run for mayor, she has nothing to say. God knows I hate Gillibrand, but still she has 10 times more of a spine than Chuck Schumer does, and that's saying something.
He isn't the first president.
Look at me, I sound like fucking Jimmy Dore right now, that's how angry I am.
To want this. But he's the first president to cower his party into submission, so that Republican rejection leads us to a decision. That Republican rejection leads us to a decision.
What the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about? You sound like Mr. Rogers right now.
Decision. It's a Hobson's choice. Either proceed with the bill.
What is a Hobson's choice? What? I have to Google this. Oh dear Lord. Okay, hold on. We're gonna Google. Not AI, fuck you. A free choice in which only one thing is actually offered. I mean, I could have inferred that, but who are you talking to right now? The Baileys don't know what a Hobson's choice is, Chuck.
Bill before us, or risk Donald Trump throwing America into the chaos of a shutdown.
Okay.
The potential for a shutdown, it is deeply part of, and before I...
This is the opposition leader of the country. It's between him and Hakeem Jeffries, who... Where has he been? Where was he during the fucking House fight? I didn't see a word from him during the House fight. But at least the House Democrats did their job. At least he did his job there. What the fuck is Chuck Schumer doing here? And then we've got Gillibrand sitting in her screaming from behind closed doors about how bad a shutdown would be.
Explain why we want a government shutdown. Unfortunately,
like, it's a word salad. Here's how Bernie can still win the 2016 election, but liberals. It's a 262-page tweet about why the thing that you think is bad actually isn't bad, and I have to walk you through the entire, like, it's like a fucking, like, it's like a Hindu, like, Vedic text that's like 600 pages long, that's like trying to logic you into thinking that actually good things, and there's actually no difference between good things and bad things, you idiot, you fucking imbecile. I love Eric. Senator Schumer can't make a Senate minority a majority. He could use the bully pulpit to lead. He could reject the CR, convey the stakes of the moment, GOP threat to Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. He chooses to cave. 100%. 100% true. Eric cooking again. Absolute sacrilegious. I probably shouldn't. Okay, all right. Listen, I don't endorse all of the vocabulary used here. Useless sack of shit, I 100% endorse. Let's go to what he has to say here. Now he goes, like, he's crashing out on Twitter, by the way. In the same way that, like, you know, this is like a Kanye tier crash out, but just over the government shutdown. For Donald Trump, a shutdown would be a gift. It would be the best distraction he could ask from his awful agenda. Wow. A shutdown? A shutdown is a distraction? The thing that is statistically the most damaging thing to presidents in history that every single president who has gone through a government shutdown has had their approval numbers like massively affected? That would be a distraction? You fucking idiot. You spineless. I can say fuck, but I can't say the C word that rhymes with it on Twitch. That's what he is. Elon Musk and Donald Trump are fucking his wife right now. Two impotent men. That's not making the YouTube VOD. A shutdown would give Donald Trump and Elon Musk carte blanche to destroy vital government services at a significantly faster rate than they can right now. What is stopping them? What is stopping them? Whose job is it to stop them? A federal judge and you. That's it. A federal judge and the United States Congress. And right now you are saying that the United States Congress shouldn't do its job. What, you think a federal judge is going to say, actually, I'm going to let them continue to gut U.S. aid because, I think Congress was a little mean to them? What does this argument mean? A shutdown would give Donald Trump the keys to the city, the state, and the country. What? The executive branch wants to gut every single bureaucracy that helps Americans, and we're only going to be playing into them if we refuse them the money with which to do it. No, the point is, if you're going to shut down one bureaucracy, we're going to shut them all down. That's the point. If we enter a shutdown, congressional Republicans would weaponize their majorities to cherry pick which parts of the government to open. What? How do you do that? Is that a thing you can do? Can you pass a CR without a 60 vote majority as long as it only applies to certain parts of the government? Or is he saying that they would nuke the filibuster in order to reopen the government? Because that's a win in my book. Since when were we fans of the actually we're not fans of the filibuster. Maybe Chuck Schumer definitely is, because once again, his entire job is to get elected by doing as little as possible. So the worse things get, the less work he has to do. That is it. Chuck Schumer's job is to stay in power. That's all he gives a shit about. He hates you. He doesn't like you. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't even like the Baileys. More than he can use them for a campaign note. I can't even remember if the Baileys did live in Westchester or Long Island. Either way, he hates them. And they're the closest thing to someone he likes. They're suburban moms. He hates suburban moms. He hates the ones that vote for Trump, and he hates the ones that vote for him. All he cares about is getting reelected. All right, I don't give a shit. The cruelty of the richest man in the world telling tens of millions of seniors that he wants to eliminate their Social Security, that their checks are part of one big scam. Elon Musk is clueless on what it means to rely on that check to buy food and medicine. Democrats are fighting for seniors. No, they're not. This is a good statement. The problem is that you read it in Chuck Schumer's voice, so you don't give a shit. The cruelty of the richest man in the world telling millions of seniors that he wants to eliminate their Social Security, that their checks are part of one big scam. One big scam. Elon Musk is clueless about... You know what Chuck Schumer sounds like? Chuck Schumer sounds like, oh my god, there was this old... back in like 2004, Conan O'Brien used to have television interviews with like fake television image, like still pictures of presidential candidates and politicians, and they just have like a moving mouth. John Kerry, Conan, 2004. That's what this Chuck Schumer reminds me of a real version of... Stop. Have you seen Chocolate? No, I haven't seen Chocolate.
6 weeks until Election Day. The presidential campaign now is really heating up. It's actually getting exciting now. It feels for a while like... All right, now, Senator, everyone's talking about the new, more aggressive John Kerry that we've been seeing this week.
That's right, Conan. I'm like a merciless predator, with piercing visage trained upon my helpless prey. I'm delighted to be engaged in full attack mode. I'm a bulldog. Woof woof.
Good for you, sir. That's terrific.
Because the new John Kerry is a no-nonsense John Kerry who shoots from the part of my anatomy where the largest bone in the body, the femur, is securely tethered via a ball and socket joint. This is a special report from CBS News. Good evening.
I could literally just, I could take this video, rip the audio, and just put Chuck Schumer's voice over it. It's a perfect substitution. Not like the voice itself. I'm talking specifically about the attempt to convey some level of being alive in the moment, looking alive. Like, this is from 20 years ago. This is a man who lost the presidential election 20 years ago. That's the voice in which I read all of this. Take me out to the baseball. Oh, and also Colombia fired their union president, which, oh, big surprise. Who would have thought that student activism and clamping down on student activism would also have been a pretext for Colombia to also shore up its anti-labor positions? Who could have imagined that crushing the pro-Palestine movement at every given point would also be a pretext for crushing the labor movement? Not like we have a prior example of this happening. Oh wait, Starbucks did exactly this. Why the fuck what? Why are porn accounts running ads? I know why. Call Chuck Schumer's Senate office and tell him to resign for his pathetic giving to MAGA robber barons and fascists. So yeah. Honestly, I have called Chuck Schumer's office 3 times. I've called Gillibrand's office 3 times. Every time I saw a different cowardly statement from them, I called them again. Like, we need to get these people out. Like, these people need to be purged from our party. There's a million different institutional reasons why Democrats can't have our own Tea Party. It is not in the cards. It has to be, if there was a Democratic Tea Party, which I'm not saying can't happen, but it would have to be the single most angry and coordinated and pure focused rage organizing effort that has ever existed in the history of the Democratic Party. The reason for that is the Tea Party was not a grassroots movement. The Tea Party was a massively astroturfed, billionaire-funded, mass media campaign that was designed to look grassroots. Within the scope of a party where if you were not able to do the bidding of capital effectively, there was nothing for you. So if you lost a primary, if you lost a campaign, if you got primaried by a MAGA Republican, you were done in politics. Not only was it easier to win as a Tea Party candidate, the consequences of losing as a non-Tea Party candidate were massively bigger. The consequences of losing as a Tea Party candidate were bigger. Because as a Republican, you have one job that is universal to Republicans and one other job that is semi-universal to Republicans. The semi-universal job is you've got to protect white people and you've got to protect men. The second one that is much more universal is your job is to protect capital. And if you cannot win elections off the millions to billions of dollars that they put into your campaign, you're not doing your job and you get cut loose. Losing elections has consequences to your career if you're a Republican. But the problem is, if you're a Democrat, you're ostensibly in the anti-corporate party. But you're not. It's not an anti-corporate party, but it is at least a diverse party. It is a constant party that is fighting a battle between a progressive wing that actually wants some level of a social safety net, some level of a welfare state, that wants to create a place where people don't have to choose between working in absolute squalor and making 5 cents an hour, right? I can actually go back here. It's not that the Democratic Party is a pro-labor party, but if there is a pro-labor element within American politics, it resides entirely in the Democratic Party, which there is a pro-labor element in American politics, and it resides entirely in the Democratic Party. So if you want to push this country left, your only option is the Democratic Party if you're in electoral politics. For the most part, unless, you're with the socialist alternative in Washington. But even they get fucking betrayed by their elected officials. Cough, cough, Shama Sawant. So if you're a Democratic official who's accepting corporate money, your job is not actually to have the Democrats represent capital in Congress. Your job is either to do that or lose to a Republican. As long as you do one of those things, you're going to do just fine. If you lose to a Republican, you get set up with a nice cushy media job. You become a pundit, or you become a consultant or something. You're going to have a private sector job that's going to pay way more than than it did in Congress, and you're going to do just fine for yourself. The problem is that Democrats don't even have an incentive to win. The only exception is when they get primaried. So we don't have the same kind of money for the primary challenges, and we also don't have the power to push politicians on issues the same way that MAGA Republicans do. So a Tea Party is really difficult because the only way that you can push the party is by winning or by being a serious threat to win. And we don't have the money to do it as easily as Republicans do. But what we do have is sheer pure rage, which Schumer doesn't realize he is fitting into. He is perfectly feeding into. That he is writing like AOC campaign ads for 2026. And at this point, I think she has an obligation to run. It is time. I think it's time to declare. Especially because AOC has played a lot of games with her goodwill with the kind of more niche left that she comes from. By niche left, I'm talking about like DSA members, of which I am also a member. But like DSA members, her support within the DSA, especially the national DSA, her support in the New York City DSA is doing perfectly solid because, quite frankly, like she's our representative and she spends time in our district, and we understand exactly the kind of support base she has, and we understand that like it's going to be very hard to beat AOC and continue to stay elected without some level of sincerity in your beliefs. And I genuinely do think that she holds a complete sincere commitment to the abolition of capitalism, to the establishment of like all of the progressive goals that she ran on. I just think that her political instincts, one, she is an incredible politician with fantastic fundraising and really good political instincts. But the problem is that she is growing really quickly, which means she has to make a lot of decisions, and not all of them are going to be right. And all of them are going to be extremely high profile because she's also, I would say, probably one of the 2 or 3 most hated politicians in the country, despite also being extremely well loved by her constituents. So it's a tough position to be in. But the problem is, because you're growing so quickly and because you're so ambitious, and she should be ambitious because she's a great politician and frankly definitely has the potential to run for president within the next 10 years. But because of that, she's played a lot with, or she has not damaged, but flexed a lot of the goodwill she has with the national left that pushed her in the first place. But again, the New York City DSA is the reason she is her origin, and her support with them is also strong. But that said, she does need to capitalize. She doesn't need to capitalize on all of the politicking she has done, and Chuck Schumer is handing her the opportunity on a silver platter. It's time. And I don't think that AOC is the national successor of Bernie Sanders. I just don't think that 2028 is the right. I don't think that 2028 is exactly her year, but I do think that it is her time to lead the Tea Party in New York. And one day I'm going to be making phone bank calls for her presidential campaign. I'm sure, unless she, unless she actually votes yes on the next no vote. But I think this is, when I say opportunity, I don't mean literally opportunity, because it's a fucking horrific moment. But this has to be the move from here. It has to be a complete organizational restructuring of the a complete personnel restructuring of the Democratic Party. It has to be. It has to be. That's the only option we've got. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are not going to win the next election. They might coast to a win in 2026, but that's going to be it. We need an opposition party, and we don't have it. It's time for these motherfuckers to go. It's time for these guys to go. They're worthless. I've heard Chris Murphy being pushed by people who hate Chris Murphy. And I don't like Chris Murphy particularly well. He's not actually all that sincere. He talks out both sides of his mouth. He's always trying to play both sides of the fence. I'm not a big fan of his. But at the very least, he engages in negative partisanship like he understands the moment. He understands the moment. I am 100% in favor of pushing a no-confidence vote against Chuck Schumer, ousting him as minority leader, and installing a centrist, somebody I don't agree with politically. I'd like to see like Brian Schatz or someone who is, or I'm mispronouncing his name, Shates? Brian Shates? I'm going to say Shates, because I know it's not Schatz, so I'm just going to go with something that has a higher chance of being right. I like someone like Brian Shates, whose politics are a little bit better, and whose rhetoric is a little more consistent on policy. But I don't care about political ideology. I care about you caring about beating Republicans. Leave the left-wing primaries to us. Not us. I'm not fucking doing anything. I wish I was doing more. That's part of what I'm doing here, is making more of my day about the importance of this rather than just consuming. Speaking of things you can do, if you want to engage in one of the most cut and dry primary efforts against establishment Democrats who are overtly corrupt, up to and including being responsible for serial sexual harassment of their subordinates and selling out New York for not a pardon, but for getting federal charges against you dropped, such as Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams. Andrew Cuomo, who also was responsible for, I can't tell you how many deaths he was, but he was responsible for many senior deaths. When he ordered nursing homes to accept senior patients who were COVID positive, and then what happened was like thousands of seniors died of COVID, I'm not sure if it was thousands, but it was I forgot what the number was. 2020 nursing home scandal. Understated the toll of COVID-19 deaths in nursing homes by as much as 83%. So the cover-up was the main thing. Whoa. Monkey. Chuck Schumer has united all factions of the party in hating him. Yeah, something like 15,000 seniors died. Now, I can't say how many of those deaths Andrew Cuomo is responsible for. But if one of those 15,000 deaths was your Nona, there is a very real chance that Cuomo is responsible for that one. But I can't tell you what that chance is. But some of them he is responsible for. All of them? Probably not. Most of them? Maybe. At least like a fifth to a quarter of them? Almost definitely. Right? I don't know how many. You'd have to ask an epidemiologist. What the fuck was I saying? Oh, right. Yeah. These guys are running for mayor. Eric Adams, who used his mayoral tenure to basically make business deals with Turkish oligarchs. And Andrew Cuomo, who treated every woman he found attractive and worked for him as he tried to treat them as his own sex doll. Like, these are the people who are front running for mayor. And if you want, no, Jesus Christ. All right, let's go back here. And if you want a very not electorally easy, but politically easy sell on a Democratic Tea Party, on a grassroots funded candidate, taking on the most corrupt, most establishment, most right-wing collaborating politicians, New York City is the place to start. I did not intend this stream as an advertisement for Zohran Mamdani for New York City. But alas, it is turning into one. Zohran here, seen in a half kurta that is not my Henley, but I do have a gorgeous half kurta, but I'm not wearing it right now. Is running for mayor. He has the most momentum, or Zohmentum. He is rising in the polls. I think at this point, he has the best chance of beating Cuomo and or Adams. And I would say he is the front runner to beat Cuomo right now. It could come down to Cuomo and Adams. But I think he has the most momentum to overtake Adams and be facing off against Cuomo in one of the later rounds. New York is a ranked choice vote primary, which means you don't have to rank a person you don't prefer first. All you have to do in order to defeat a candidate you absolutely do not want to see in a state house, in Gracie Mansion, all you have to do is you have to rank all 5 slots and not rank the person you don't want to win. So if I don't want Cuomo or Adams to win, my job is identify the candidate that I want to win the most. Identify the candidates I would rather have than Cuomo or Adams, which is all of them. And rank those 5 candidates in order of whatever preference I have. So right now I have them ranked. I mean, Zohran, right? Mine is Mamdani. That's not a Drake song. Is literally, it's, for me, it's just Zohran. If I could vote for him 5 times and then put like 6, 7, 8, 9 for the other people, I would. But that said, there's also Jessica Ramos who's running, who I'm not sure why you would vote for Ramos over Zohran, considering their platforms are very, very similar and he has way more momentum and is just more popular and has more citywide notoriety, mainly because like he's been an activist in the city. Like, it's not specifically the reason Zohran is better known is that he has been active in the city. He went on the first time I heard of him was when the taxi workers went on a hunger strike over basically one of their drivers had died by, content warning, I'm going to talk about suicide, because a taxi driver killed himself because of insurmountable taxi medallion debt. So this was institutional murder. This was institutional murder by debt, right? Institutional murder implies like somebody was like directly responsible for it, which when the term is used for like, I'm not going to go into that, but it was, I'm saying it was murder by institution. That the medallion debt being overbearing and the fact that Uber and Lyft and rideshare companies had made it impossible for taxi drivers to pay down their debt inevitably led to this. Inevitably, but not unavoidably, if that makes sense. So the taxi drivers went on, Taxi Workers Association, TWA, went on a 15-day hunger strike. I might be getting some of the facts wrong, some of the trivia wrong. Zohran was one of the politicians who joined them. He went on a 15-day hunger strike. They passed a debt forgiveness law that drastically reduces the medallion debt for people who weren't able to pay it off. It was a massive success. He also went on a hunger strike during the start of the Gaza genocide. It was a much shorter one. I think it was like 2 or 3 days. And he has also been an activist with the Not on Our Dime Act, which I believe encourages the state of New York or the city of New York. I think it's the state of New York to divest from Israeli apartheid organizations. Basically anyone, I believe it's anybody who does business in the West Bank should not be able to do business with, or who does business in the occupied West Bank should not be able to do business with the state of New York. That was the organization. And he did that at a time where it was still a very politically incorrect thing to criticize Israel beyond the really blatantly horrible shit, like when they assassinated journalists, American journalists, or assassinating Palestinian journalists was fine at the time, but assassinating Palestinian American journalists, beyond that kind of egregious stuff, where like their weekly Ramadan stormings of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, or annual stormings of the Al-Aqsa Mosque during Ramadan iftar or whatever, like that kind of stuff. Beyond that, it wasn't really okay to like criticize, like to say like we should divest from Israel. I know, because like I would say that I would get like really like I would get massively vitriolic comments on my if I ever expressed that shit on a Facebook, not my own Facebook post, but like other people's comments on my Facebook post too. But I rarely did at the time. So the reason he's better known is that he has been doing this. He has been an activist. He's been engaged. He's been on the ground, and he's always put his money where his mouth is. In fact, let's get an example of that like everyone I know of has seen, but remember when I was talking about how our country needs opposition leaders who understand the urgency of the moment and convey that urgency and convey the egregiousness of what the Trump administration is doing? I'm going to start this video again.
When we asked Tom Homan, all he had to answer for that cruelty was a smirk. Because there is no answer for taking a man from his pregnant wife, who is due to deliver their newborn child in a month, from their Columbia University apartment, a day after that same man, Mahmoud Khalil, wrote to Columbia University and said he feared for his life. The cowardice that is on display across our city and our state is unacceptable. New Yorkers are looking to us. They are looking to their leaders for courage and for conviction. And what they are finding instead is collaboration. And that is just simply unacceptable.
This is the kind of leadership we need. Not just to win elections, right? It's not just to get Democrats out voting, which it is. It absolutely is. The Chuck Schumer wing of the party, the Chuck Schumer culture, tradition of the party is we want to win the Baileys in Westchester. These fantastical suburbanites who are suddenly going to change their vote from Trump over to Biden, or they're still, like, honestly, that's kind of like an apt Freudian slip, which is they're still running the fucking Biden campaign. That they're going to switch from Trump over to the Democrat. But I don't know what the exact numbers were, But in terms of Democrat voters who voted for the Democrat and Republican voters who voted for the Republican, I believe for both sides it was 92 to 95%. There was a complete and total conversion. There was zero attrition. Or I don't know if attrition is the right word. But there was no gaining the other side's voters. It didn't happen. This was an election of mobilization. Democrats did not turn out to vote for Kamala Harris. Republicans turned out to vote for Trump. And he was pushed over the top by low propensity voters who voted for him out of economic angst. He won the popular vote off, random working class votes in New York. I don't know. I don't know exactly what the popular vote decider was. But what I know is that between 92 and 95% of people registered with one of the two major parties who voted in the presidential election voted for that party's candidate. And Trump had the benefit of people who showed up, checked Trump on the ballot, and went home. And did not vote down ballot. Democrats have no such fervor. Joe Biden had no such base of support. God knows Kamala Harris had no such base of support. No one was showing up to the booth to vote for just her. This was a mobilization election. They had fervor for one candidate and no fervor for the other. And still he only won by 1.5%. This is such a winnable political moment. But you have to understand what you're doing. Democrats need leaders who, I'm going to close this. The Democratic Party needs leaders who understand that moment and are willing to convey that to their most loyal voters. And it is not only so that they will come out to vote. It's not just the electoral angle. And that's what also people like Zoran, and generally, for all the criticisms that I have had of them, and them, I say them, but like I am a member of the organization. And of course, it's a democratic organization. So we all like have problems with the way that we make decisions. For all the criticisms I have of the DSA operates as an outreach and solidarity organization first. And its candidates operate in the same way. They're required to in order to be endorsed by the organization. So when Zohran Mamdani goes up to Tom Homan and says, how many kids are you going to kidnap? Or how many people are you going to imprison? He's not doing it necessarily to get votes. He's not doing it necessarily to look good on a campaign video. And he doesn't necessarily look good on a campaign video. I think you can spin it for him to look good. You can spin it for him to look deranged. But what it does do is he looks urgent about it. So people who agree with him in spirit understand the urgency. What he is doing is he is mobilizing and motivating communities of people who already support him, not just in New York, but people who see that footage, who disagree with, the existence of ICE. I'm talking like moderates who want to abolish ICE, who don't like, not moderates, but like people who don't vote, but don't like La Migra, right? Like, specifically, he sees people standing up to ICE and showing the urgency of the moment. And in their communities, when ICE shows up, what do you think they're going to be motivated to do? Because they saw Zohran stand up for what's right. That's the kind of leaders that we need. Not just to win elections, but to incentivize, to inspire, and to motivate non-compliance everywhere. Everywhere. Sorry, let me say that like Chuck Schumer. What we need, I'm not going to do the Chuck Schumer voice, okay? I don't want to get canceled. What we need are leaders in the Democratic Party who are able to inspire the urgency, who are able to motivate low propensity voters all across the country, to stand up for the rights of their undocumented brothers and sisters. They have to see somebody standing up to Tom Homan and say, I will do the same thing in my community. So when ICE shows up to whatever community they're part of, they too will stand up and say, we will fight. We will fight. We won't stop. We won't stop. These are the leaders we need in our party. Beyond just, yes, put him in Gracie's mansion. Or Gracie Mansion. 100%. We need him in Gracie Mansion. But it's not about Zoran. It really isn't. The point is, it's not him. He's not the leader. He's not the person who's leading us. What we need are people who act like he does so that they show everybody else to act like he does. That's what I'm doing here, is that we all need to start acting like it. We need to approach politics with the level of urgency and fervor that it deserves during the continuing and ongoing Nazification of our society. We're in the Niemöller poem. I'm going to keep saying it. Don't rank him number one. You're gonna have a hard time finding candidates to rank who aren't Cuomo or Adams without putting him on there. Don't rank him number one. Put him number two, number three. I mean, you should put him number one. He's objectively the best candidate. Or subjectively. But if you and I have the same values, I think he's the best candidate. I was liking Brad Lander for a bit, and then I just, his campaign, Lander's rhetoric specifically on the disappearing of Mahmoud Khalil showed me that not only is he not showing the urgency of this moment in a partisan manner, in a negative partisan manner, he also is not running the kind of campaign that I think has the best chance of beating Andrew Cuomo, because I think he's making a play for a lot of would-be Cuomo voters who are voting against Zohran because they perceive him to be an anti-Semite. The problem with that is you're going to get some of those voters who might be more progressive but less motivated and kind of hedging their bets on Zohran, where it's like, oh, I really dislike Cuomo and I have some criticisms of Israel. And I don't like the Mahmoud Khalil thing. He might get some of those voters, but he's not going to win. He would need enough of those not to get eliminated before Andrew Cuomo or Zohran Mamdani, which is not going to happen. The problem is he is going to be behind Andrew Cuomo on every single ballot on which they are both ranked. That's the problem. And when that's the case, he is never going to establish a foothold against Andrew Cuomo, because your votes don't get counted until every person ranked ahead of you has been eliminated, right? So you only get the votes on ballots where candidates are eliminated up until the point that you reach there. So if Brad Lander and Andrew Cuomo are sharing too many ballots, and Andrew Cuomo is ranked ahead of him on every single one of them, which he will be. Nobody's right. Nobody who's willing to vote for Andrew Cuomo is going to settle for Brad Lander. Nobody who's willing to vote for Andrew Cuomo is progressive enough that they prefer Brad Lander. So then you're competing with Zohran. But if you're competing with Zohran, you're doing it wrong, because you are completely alienating the base that would vote for him, right? So I just don't think Brad Lander has the juice to beat Cuomo. It's less about the rhetoric, and the rhetoric is abhorrent. I hate the rhetoric, the rhetoric. But if the rhetoric is what can beat Cuomo, and he's saying this is the niche that I have, maybe he's accepted that he can't beat Zohran with the left, which okay. But I'm not going to rank him first. I was never going to rank him first when Zohran was running. But there was a chance where I was going to say, you know what? I think this guy's the best chance to beat Cuomo. I'm going to rank him second. But I don't think it matters. I don't know. I'll make a margin call. It might be Zellner. It might be Ramos. I have problems with all of them. I think Ramos. I think Ramos should. I don't think Ramos should drop out, but I think Ramos should endorse Zohran. I think she should just say, yeah. I think she should stay on the ballot and endorse Zoran and effectively drop out. And say, you should rank me, but rank me behind Zoran. Rank me in the interest of stopping Cuomo. Yeah, my problem with Ramos is she's kind of willfully splitting the left. Zellner just has some sussy. I think I've heard some like sussy like libertarian takes on certain fiscal issues. And I think I can't remember if he had a good answer on the housing questions. And Scott Stringer is a credibly alleged sexual harasser, so he is my stopgap against Cuomo and only Cuomo, and Adams, right? If I had to, I would rank Adams to stop Cuomo, and not because Adams would be better for New York than Cuomo. I think he would be worse for New York, but at the very least, the blame would be very clearly established. Cuomo would be almost he would be 95% as bad for New York as Eric Adams. If Eric Adams wins, he is very clearly a Trump puppet. While if Cuomo wins, the Democratic Party becomes the scapegoat for it, right? So all the bad things that happen in New York will get blamed on Democrats if Cuomo wins. And they'll get blamed on Republicans if Adams wins. And don't get me wrong, both Republicans and Democrats are to blame. But in terms of winning the next election, it'll be much, much, much better if we're running against Eric Adams. But that's not really a relevant issue because there are 5 candidates you can rank over both Cuomo and Adams, and all 5 of them would be better. Scott Stringer, if I rank him, would be absolute 5th. Mainly because, one, yes, I will. If my choice is between 2 sexual predators, I will vote for the lesser criminal of the 2, plus also the one with the better politics, right? And especially when those 2 are one and the same, I will vote for the one with the better politics and with the lesser crimes. But secondarily, also because not secondarily, I think actually the main reason you shouldn't elect people who have been credibly alleged of sexual predation and like sexual abuse, generally speaking, as a general rule. This doesn't apply to every case, but if they have one outstanding accusation against them, there are probably more skeletons in their closet. And in politics, if the person is not like extremely above board about literally everything, chances are they have worse stuff in their history, and that makes them open to blackmail, which is exactly what we're trying to stop in Eric Adams. Why would I vote for somebody who has more, I don't know if I'm using the word right, but compromat? Why would I put someone else in who has that, who is compromised, right? It doesn't make sense. So you shouldn't vote for sexual harassers on the merits, obviously on the moral merits, but also because it's a corruption influence. It makes them susceptible to blackmail. Anywho, cool. Are we done? Can I go? I guess I could go anytime. I'm not a prisoner here. What am I doing? I can go anytime I want. All right. I do have to go. I have to eat something because then I have to fast because I have a physical in the morning. So I'm going to go to the doctor. But first I'm going to go to sleep. Stay safe. Go to, join your community. You know? Yeah. I'm going to go canvass for Zoran. I'm going to do it. If you live in New York, you might see me out there. I don't get involved enough in activist stuff. It's a massive social anxiety thing for me. I'll be perfectly honest about that. It's not that I don't. I don't get involved in it as much as I wish I did. Every single election cycle for every single candidate that I do volunteer for, I always wish I had done more. Win or lose. You know, I've never actually volunteered for a winning campaign. But it's because I didn't do it enough. If I had done 2 more phone banking shifts, every single one of those campaigns would have won. It was my fault. And I have to accept that, and I have to let that inform my behavior. It is singularly my fault that Yulia New did not win her primary. It is singularly my fault that Lauren Ashcraft lost. It is singularly my fault that Jamal Bowman is no longer in Congress. And it's yours too. It's yours too, because I know you didn't do it either. So go. Just go to like a community dancing event. Get involved. Just do stuff in your community. Okay. I will end with this. The end of his political career. Yep. A girl can dream. Also, if you have time, you should really watch Lindsey Boylan's interview on the Majority Report. If you have any doubts about the allegations against Andrew Cuomo, this should put them to rest. Lindsey Boylan very in graphic detail spells out what Andrew Cuomo has been accused of, what he did to her while she worked there, and just the sheer extent of his, not just his political corruption, but his moral corruption too. And she gets into all of it. Cool. All right. Be safe. Go do things. Unplug. Read a book that's not about politics. Meditate. Listen to music. Or play World of Warcraft for 14 hours and lose a mage and then get insulted in the